Today I would like to take a look at Rebind, because I believe there is more to Rebind than meets the eye. So the technique of Rebind is used pretty frequently in 133 and also quite early, because we can find it in the very first play of the manual. There is no description about the technique, but we have images of both starting and ending positions of this technique, and from them it is pretty easy to determine what the technique is about. So it seems to be about first getting in the bind if I wasn't already there, but I may be there already, and immediately using the bind to push the opponent's sword down and to the side, most probably in a circular motion. So Rebind seems to be like get in the bind and then use this sweeping circular motion to use this opponent's sword down and to the side, to move it down and to the side. In 133 this action is not offensive, it is never labeled as an obsessio, and it is never used, well, sometimes it is used from my initiative and not as a reaction to the opponent, but in that case it is more a prevention of what might have come later. This technique is rather defensive in nature, and it is used as a defense or prevention mostly against thrusts, but also sometimes against cuts. The technique itself in 133 is most often done on the right side, but we also have example of doing this technique on the left side, so both are possible. So this is what we know based on the manual, and now what do I think about it? Well, I believe that there is more about this Rebind than just one of the defensive techniques. First, there is question of the name of the technique, which is quite weird. Rebind, it hints at sort of returning back to the bind, regaining the bind or whatever. You are breaking from the bind and then you are returning back. That seems to be the idea according to the name, and the same idea is in the original word, religatio in Latin, because it means pretty much the same. So the name suggests at this returning back to some situation, returning back to binding and whatever, but the technique itself is not about it at all. It is just about pushing the opponent's sword. In fact, the technique in the manual in 133 is sometimes done already from the bind. So you are in the bind, you never break loose from the bind, and you use this bind to push the opponent's sword down and to the side. So the technique itself is really about pushing, not about regaining the bind, because you might already be there. Not necessarily you may be outside of the bind and regain the bind, but again, you can regain the bind just by getting the swords into touch, and that's all. I don't have to push the opponent's sword away. So the name seems to be pretty weird. It seems to be describing something that is not happening with this action, or it might happen, but it is not the primary purpose. But I have made an observation. Imagine a combat situation in sparring. A model situation. We are in sparring, the opponent has a langort, I want to attack, so I will beat his sword away and I will attack. I am controlling the opponent's sword with my shield, but he blocked my cut with his shield, so I am trying to go around, the opponent is turning around, and this chaos, fencing chaos arises. We are no longer in any defined positions and we are trying to get on each other, and suddenly I feel that the opponent's sword slips from my control here, and when this happens, sometimes I had the instinctive reaction to clear this sword away, because I immediately, as the sword is slipping from the control, I immediately notice the danger. You have this imminent, this feeling of an imminent danger. And what I did was that I did like a sweeping circular motion to clear the danger away, and do this because I feel that if I sweep the danger that was in front of me to the side, it is no longer dangerous, because if it is at the side, I'm no longer in any possible line of a thrust, and if I push the opponent's sword down, I am bringing the opponent's sword away from the vulnerable parts of my body. So in this chaotic situation, I feel that if I clear the danger away, I am getting the control over what is happening. And now I have done this in sparring certainly more than once, and only after some time I have realized that what I have done was a rebind, and it was a rebind done in a situation that wasn't explained, wasn't shown in 133. There was no suggestion that the rebind might be the correct solution in this situation, nothing like that. But still, it worked in this way. And this gave me the idea. It is possible that the rebind was in fact like historical, like old technique to intended to do exactly that. If you are out of control, you can do the rebind to take the control back. Because you are sweeping the danger away, you are rendering it safe, and you are gaining the dominant position. So it might have been like a self-defense suggestion, self-defense advice. If you lose the control over the situation, immediately do this rebind, immediately do this circular sweeping outwards motion to regain the control back, and then work from the situation that you have gotten in. So it would make sense, because it works like that. The rebind, this sweeping motion, is a very general thing. It can be used against many different dangers, against thrust, against cuts, against whatever might be in front of you, because you are just sweeping any danger away from here. And it is possible that it was this general mechanism intended to regain the control over what is happening. And now the priests have been taught this mechanism, and maybe he was still using it in this way. Maybe if I have asked the priest for some self-defense advices, he would tell me exactly this: if you are losing control over what is happening, do a rebind, because it would be probably a good advice. But the priest also, when he was developing his fencing system, he also realized that, according to him, some situations are best solved exactly with this move. So this move suddenly becomes a technique, not a general like underlying mechanism, very broad, very general, but a specific technique that can be used as a best solution to some specific situations. So the priest would take this originally general motion and would turn it into a specific technique that fits in specific situations. But he would keep the name. So suddenly we would see in the manual that there is a technique that is called a rebind, because originally it was about regaining the control through the bind, regaining the top binding position. But it is no longer used in this way. It is used for some different purposes, because the priest used this move, but retained the original. He used this move in a different way, but he retained the original name. This is possible because this is not the first thing that I have found in 133 to work in this way. Because Schutzen is something similar. Schutzen, in my opinion, most probably originally was a dedicated defensive technique, a simple parry that is like only for defense. Opponent is attacking, I am defending, that's all. But in the priest system, it is already very different. You can use Schützen even for the attack. So the priest has taken this original technique, original mechanism, and turned it into something different, while retaining the same name. So the name of the Schützen still talks about covering, about sheltering, about hiding. But it is no longer a dedicated defensive technique, and it can be used for the attack. And I believe the Rebind was something similar, or have gone through something similar. This was of course a speculation, but it would explain the Wierd name, and it would explain why the name talks about something different than the technique itself. And it would like give you this self-defense advice that in fact works. But I have also found one more thing that would suggest that the Rebind is in fact deep in the priest system, and it is used very often. Well, it is used often, we know that from the text, because several times in the manual we see that a situation is solved by a Rebind. So it is used quite often. But in fact this circular outward sweeping move is in fact even more frequent than this, because there are techniques in the manual that don't talk about Rebind at all, but in fact they include this move in themselves. The first example is mutatio gladi. I am in the position, in the bind below the opponent's sword, and I don't like this position because there is this danger of the opponent hitting at my head. So I want to get to a better position. So what I will do, I will move away from the bind. But as soon as I move away from the bind, I am no longer feeling what the opponent's sword is doing, and I am no longer restraining the opponent's sword. So if I leave the bind, I immediately lose the control over what the opponent is doing. But that is what I know before. I know that if I leave the bind, I lose the control. So what I do, I will lose the control and immediately do this rebind, this circular sweeping motion to get the control back. So again, there is the idea of intentional losing control, but immediately gathering the control back, and I will get to the control in a more favorable position above the opponent's sword. Another example would be one of the plays of Kruke. We are both in prima custodia. The opponent is cutting Kruke at me. I am blocking it with the shield, and the opponent switches into the thrust above my shield and hits me. This is one of the plays about omitting the bind. And the recommended solution to this situation would be, again, the cut of Kruke. I am blocking, and as the opponent is switching to the thrust, I am going for my sweeping circular outwards move that clears the danger away and brings it to the side and down, which is again a rebind. So from all this we can see that the rebind seems to be included in many other reactions, many other techniques. And even if the 133 doesn't explicitly say that here the rebind is done, still this outward circular sweeping motion is there, and it seems to be a basis of many other different actions. So I would say that rebind is more than just a technique. It seems to be a like underlying principle of many techniques. So this was my take on the rebind. In the next video I will look at the weaknesses of the rebind.